Whatley, have
Mhm.
you ever told anyone or been told that cleaning's included in the line item? Is it something that we hear regularly when we travel and we train, and contractors and adjusters have different opinions as to what is included in the line item, right?
One of the most common complaints that we hear as trainers.
So the big change this month is around final cleaning. And if you do any kind of final cleaning in residential or commercial, which is pretty much almost everybody when it's warranted, which we'll talk about, there was a giant change this month that we need to talk about right now. So let's jump into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the price list update summary video. You've got Harrison here and you've got Whatley there, and we are Actionable Insights. We are here to talk the new line items that were added to the Xactimate price list in January of 2022. Whatley, we made it. It's the new year. We have done it. It's 2022. We've got some big things on our calendar this year, which I'm excited about. If you pay attention to Xactimate, you would probably know about the Verisk Elevate conference that happens in February every year in Utah. Whatley, you and I are actually speaking at the conference this year. So if I can plug anything for the upcoming time of what should you be paying attention to, how can you further educate yourself and invest in your career, check out the Verisk Elevate conference where Whatley and I will be talking about exponential estimating with geospatial technology. I'm really looking forward to that one, Wally. We've been doing some big prep work for it, and I'm excited. We got on the big
You're
stage.
always excited.
I
Bro.
am excited.
That's like the one thing
What a
that we
life.
can count on.
What a life. Very excited and all about providing value.
The most value provided.
100%. You were I were on the big stage at Verisk Elevate conference back in, I think, 2019. So it's nice when we're having this in-person conference together again, to be back up there, to be talking about the things that we love and helping people the way we do.
So, side note, that's going to sell out like next week because it's constrained. Normally that conference is running over 1,000. I'm not going to give you the number, but it's not going to be quite that big this year thanks to this Omicron variant. You might have heard of it. So get your ticket now because I think it's going to sell out in the next week. So
but you will also be able to attend virtually. All right. As part of this priceless update summary video series, if this is your first time watching, our goal is to look at all the new line items that were added to the Xactimate price list. We also examine the changes to existing line items. We believe in this world of learning that you need to know that it exists and know how to find it. And this video series is an example of, we're going to talk about the things that now exist in the price list, and we want to make sure that you have a resource to be able to find it and how to use these line items. Why were they created? What's the purpose and context? We have 23 new line items in January 2022. So Whatley, let's jump in to the start here. I have X1 open with the new January 22 price list. And I saw a familiar name at the top of this list, like a familiar line item. And why was it familiar? Well, in December of 2021, just so few days ago, we have here the TMP Gen PB line items power distribution boxes greater than 100 amps that came out last month. But what we saw in January is that these line items were essentially duplicated into the WTR water remediation category code. While you and I have talked a lot about the status of work and property insurance, and that some contractors build their book of business with non-program work, others take program work regularly, and it's a big part of their work that they get. We've had conversations with the pricing department about how do we make sure that those taking program work, that are working in program environments, have the line items they need to be able to invoice fairly and accurately. And this to me is an example of that thought process of, hey, we put it in the TMP category code, but we also understand these power distribution boxes will be used regularly in mitigation. Therefore, we've also added it to the WTR category code, which help smooth claim settlement, right?
You got it. Especially because these new line items were adopted around accommodating, Garrett's GSM power distribution box that was really for sub 100 amps, which would be really common in WTR.
Let me catch you there. That's GMS and Garrett Steer. What's up, Garrett?
Yes, GMS. So, at any rate, so now they're in WTR and TMP, which should help in a program environment for certain because we've all been told, we can't use that line item because it's not within WTR category, or in fact, we can't use WTR line item on a repair estimate and so on. So they bothered to include it in both categories, which is most excellent. There's two line items here really is that you've got your power distribution box, which is sub 100 amps, and then you have your power distribution box for greater than 100 amps. I think something for clarity that will help reduce claim friction is actually illustrating that the power distribution box that's for less than 100 amps we should include that notion in the description straight away.
So I've actually pulled that up in the search field here. And just to point out that the power distribution box normal doesn't say anything about amps, but the power distribution 100 plus amp does. So this is an example, by the way, of some of the feedback that we collect and provide back to the pricing department as part of this video series. You should not have to search for the plus 100 amp line item to determine whether or not you're using the original line item you needed to. Straight up.
Right.
So hopefully we can provide this feedback in the coming days, and we might see a change in February or beyond to update the description of the line item to make it easier to search and to easier to quickly confirm, yes, this is the right line item that I want for my use case scenario. All right. Bubble wrap add-ons. So in the past, we've had a B-wrap line item. I'll type in B-wrap up here, around 24-inch, typically 24-inch wide bubble wrap, and it's an add-on cost for fragile line items. Well, 24 inches is nice, but contractors often choose to use different materials on different jobs, different items, right? This is contents. Everybody's got different contents. People care more about their contents generally than they do the walls of their home. It's something that we've discovered as something unique in the new world where banks and mortgage companies own all properties. Bubble wrap add-ons. So 12-inch, 48-inch wide. We've got, if you want to take a look, we'll jump into the unit price here and the I for information next to the replace price. This is a material-only line item. It's simply around, hey, if you're using 12 inches or 24 or 48, you now have a line item that goes with that. Make sense?
I think it's odd that they call it an add-on light on them, in so much as like you wouldn't say an add-on medium box. You wouldn't say add-on stretch wrap, right? So it kind of exists in kind of an odd description for it, but I don't think that's problematic one way or the other. So
the unit's by linear foot. So if anybody is confused about add-ons, you check the unit here to go, okay, I'm supposed to be invoicing this by the linear foot of the 12-inch wide bubble wrap that I'm using on this shop.
Yeah. What I think is interesting is how much this line item was actually changed for the old line item for 24.
So we will talk about that shortly when we get into the changes to existing line items.
So we've got 12, we've got 24, and we've got 48 now.
Yes.
So it just creates space for us to invoice more accurately as restorers, and for, if you're a reviewer, you want to keep an eye out for 48-inch wide on everything. I don't know that that's super common. So just see if that reconciles with the forensic photography from the job, etc. If we're seeing a lot of 48-inch wide bubble wrap, there might be an overage there.
Well said. All right, we have a collection, a slew, you might say, of new line items regarding header casing in 4 to 6 to 8 inches, from 2 to 3 to 4 pieces, and from hardwood and paint grade. So lots of different options here. While in our research, we do the classic Google image search to help us find examples for you guys. Because one of the things, Whatley, you and I were just lamenting about before we hopped on this call, when new line items are added to the price list, there's not always an item image, which makes it tough sometimes when we're doing this work to determine, hey, there's a new line item. What is it exactly for? There's no item image. So then we got to go to Google and guess, and we try to explain it out here. So we were talking about this Google image search here around 3-piece header casing. We found a couple different examples, but this piece, these 3 pieces together, is what we were identifying as would be described in this line item. Do you want to build on that at all?
Yeah, you can see the pencil casing there along the bottom, and then you have the flat aspect, which is customary when it comes to a header casing. Typically, it'll have 3, 4, 6 inch of a flat piece of casing before you then transition to the crown. And the crown is typically smaller than you would see like in a room, but they add a crown to the top of it. And so I don't think it would be warranted in this case to bill for the 3-piece casing and then bill for the crown. There's probably an overage there.
Well, in this unique picture, I mean, they do have
you could bill for them both, right? Agreed. There is that notion, so it may be warranted. And I think if you're going to have a property that actually has 3-piece casing above a door, it's going to very often actually have crown, real crown.
Probably.
But my point is, don't invoice for the crown as relates to the doors. That's really called the 3-piece casing. That's what that line item exists to provide relief for, in my estimation.
Beautiful. So you have options: 4-inch thick, 6-inch, 8-inch hardwood, paint grade, 2-piece, 3-piece, 4-piece, and there's also a multi-member detach and reset here. So lots of options for header casing for those that are doing those activities.
You want to detach that and reset it
for $275? Not exactly. Not ideal. Let's take a look at the component buildup there.
Maybe hardwood you could do. Maybe that's credible.
Looking at nails, we got to use the nails.
Maybe.
And it's saying that a carpenter can do approximately 65 of these an hour to detach and reset.
It's done by a unit. No, it's done by linear feet. No, it's not. It's 65 linear feet.
Thank you.
Yeah, not 65
there you go.
of them.
Not hour, yeah.
But really with
per hour.
The supporting events, it's really saying in reality there can be 36 linear feet.
Detach and reset?
Maybe.
It's possible. I got to trust the data analytics company to have better data than we do.
Well,
but
I don't know that that's
trust...
like untrue. I just think it's difficult to detach and reset casing and baseboard. And I think that's especially true as it relates to medium density fiberboard. It's mission impossible to do that as well.
And generally speaking, the houses that have these are probably going to be of higher quality, which means you probably need to take your time a little bit more and make sure. But hey, this is the power of the Xactimate price list. Why do they have a pricing department? So that people can give feedback, so that they can continue. These are not, this is the line item and it's never going to change, right? This is why people have the opportunity to review them and provide that feedback to make sure that we come to what is a representative cost, an average cost of working in that area.
Yeah, as a restorer, you can lament about, why do we have, detach and reset a multi-member header casing? That's impossible to do to pre-loss condition, or at least to satisfaction of our policyholders. Or you can be grateful as a restorer for the fact that the pricing department bothered to adopt it, and then you're not constrained to detach and reset of casing, which I'm certain, without looking, pays considerably less. So things are on the spectrum here. It's not binary of right and wrong. There's a lot of good people trying to do the right thing.
Yep. Once there is a line item, it makes it easier to settle any claim. As long as the line item exists, you can update it, change it, add F9 notes to justify any changes you make. But if there is no line item, well, there's no starting point. So good changes when you have options to use. All right. Lastly, we've talked for a couple of years now in this video series that Xactimate continues to add new commercial-oriented line items for those that are performing property insurance work in the commercial side of this industry. We have 4 new line items regarding tracks. And in fact, if I go to the item image here for our synthetic polyurethane, we're talking tracks. We've got asphalt track, cinder clay track, synthetic polyurethane track, synthetic latex track. Now, I don't know how many, in what situation these would often be used. Whatley, you and I hypothesize that potentially wildfires in California, for example, in schools, that those fires and the heat could damage the tracks in some way, and that you would need to restore the tracks with a line item like this. But, it's probably not so much a hospital line item. I don't know many doctors going for laps in between their surgeries.
This is an underwriting line item. I don't think it's for claims.
Fair.
I think it's a 360 value play, but I could be wrong.
Fair. Our goal is to give purpose and context, baby. Try to give them every scenario or any scenario in which this line item would be used. All right. That's 23 new line items added to the Xactimate price list in January of 2022. But they also make edits and adjustments to existing line items. So I am now going to move this over here. And on the left side, you will see the December plus ESX. This is the December 21 price list. This is the line items that existed in December last month. On the right side, we have new line items, updated line items for January. In fact, I need to jump down a room here so we can compare apples to apples.
And I think often, our ninjas, our followers, they get really consumed with new line items and how that can impact claim settlement. And they absolutely can. And it's your responsibility on both sides of the claim to track that. But the changes that really impact the dollar amount for how these claims are settling are often within just adjustments to commonly used line items. And that's about what this section is about. And I think that's where the big changes are going to come, which you're about to get into in a moment.
Let's start on the smaller side of the big changes here. We talked about bubble wrap. Bubble wrap's pretty small, right? Bubble wrap's pretty small. Individual bubble, great, small. Here we have the CPSP wrap line item from December has been updated. You can see the description immediately. It's been changed to bubble wrap 24-inch wide, add-on cost for fragile items.
This actually really made sense because they didn't identify as 24 before.
No, if you go into this was the line item description, it said 3/16 in 24-inch wide in the additional item information. So
right,
it said it
but
there.
not before. Yeah, but now it's much more clear. And right, you didn't have a choice. So what are you going to do when you were using 12 or 48? So this was a really thoughtful choice. I like this addition of having 3 different widths for the bubble wrap and then incorporating that into description. That was well done.
Yep. Because now, by the way, just in general, if you're searching, for example, like a typical user searching for bubble wrap, what do you see? 12-inch, 24, 48. It's right there in the description. I don't need to click on it, get it in my estimate. Fine. Nope. It's right there. All right. We had some changes to the drilled bottom plate line items. Let's take a look here. I am going to maximize this. I can go back to the unit price here. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Boom. Okay. Thank you. Drilled bottom plate 2x4 treated lumber. Drilled bottom plate 2x4 treated lumber. When I opened these line items up for the first time, I was like, oh, that's an interesting change. In December of 2021, these drilled bottom plate treated lumber line items had demo laborer, DMO as the component labor trade component code for demo. But in January of 2022 and moving forward, it's the carpenter, general framer line item. And so this is this is very representative of the reality of building to me. Who would typically be performing this kind of work on site when you're drilling a bottom plate with treated lumber?
Well, it's not going to be labor ready. You know, it's not going to be general labor. It's going to be a skilled tradesperson that has a framing bias.
Yep. So this change is representative of that idea of, hey, who's actually doing the work on site? Obviously, there's a big change in the cost difference between a framing carpenter and a general laborer. And those costs, that change, that delta is represented here in the unit cost from December to January, from 640 to 1002 in our San Diego price list, as you see here.
Yeah, agreed. Before you jump forward, let's get underneath the hood of this bubble wrap line item a little bit more. So go to the old one and how the components are so different. I think it's an interesting exercise. So the assembly info, you got it. So take a look here on the left, like the component buildup, it's going off of a roll at $152. So for our contents company, we get the bubble wrap and this giant roll. I think it's like 10 feet high. It's kind of arduous to work with. But that's the roll they're talking about. That's why it's $152. And what is interesting is now they've moved to a linear feet component, which I think makes sense for like the smaller contents companies. They don't have the volume or the storage space to deal with those giant rolls of bubble wrap, and so they're probably going to Home Depot or alike, and so this can better accommodate that. I mean, yeah, the price went down, and I guess we can acknowledge that, but also, of course, the 48-inch one paid more than the 24-inch one. They were probably just trying to strike a reasonable balance between the two with the former line item as it relates to unit pricing. But this is an interesting expression, and it's also emblematic of the fact that materials pricing, Xactware tracks retail pricing, not wholesale pricing. And so when we're buying, a bubble wrap, Harrison, and it's 10 feet high in the air, I mean, that's like a wholesale product. And this is the transition towards tracking retail pricing that you would see from your big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's.
Good points. I remembered now that we wanted to talk about the difference between the 750-foot roll and then just doing it by the individual linear foot, which that change unlocked the ability to invoice for 12-inch, 24-inch, and 48-inch, giving people options, which is generally what we like. All right. We've already kind of discussed the changes here in the drilled bottom plate treated lumber. Please note these are all in the removal category. Right. So that's really reflective of that change from a demo laborer to a carpenter who it would typically be removing these things, especially if you are trying to salvage them or reset them in any way. Those line items there. And then lastly, we had a change here in the rafters line item, FRM RF12SF. They modified the yield of the material component. So let's open up this information. And we'll take a look at two materials that changed here. you've got fir and larch and rafter hanger bracket on the left side, fir and larch rafter hanger on the right side. And you'll see some changes. And I think the first one here is the fir larch. So Whatley, like 6 months ago, we had a big segment in this video series called Lumber Watch, where we were constantly tracking the changes in lumber pricing throughout COVID and the industry's reaction to that.
Right.
Where for lumber shot up, the price list is reactive, and it was not as quick as people wanted it to be to capture the updated costs throughout COVID. And then the cost, once lumber went back down, the cost was still up there. So of course, now everybody's like accumulating fire losses. So these things happen. But you can see a direct change to a material component cost here in this line item. For larch in December was...
yeah, I think it's just whitewood going up in price from one month to another. And I think the reason lumber prices change so much is because there's systemic anti-competitive behavior in the supply chain associated with lumber. Not a huge fan of regulation, but boy, what in the world is going on in that supply chain?
And you live in California? Yeah,
I do, and we're subject to some nonsense because we got to import all that stuff from Oregon. Anyhow, there's what I'm implying, folks, has nothing to do with our industry. There's no bad actors here as relates to lumber, but there are lumber suppliers that purchase on the low and then they try to sell it on the high, and it functions as a bit like our oil industry, and in ways you want the free markets to play out. That is probably been the best approach to creating the most wealth and opulence for our societies. But for something about how lumber moves, and it moves so violently, gives me the impression that there's some price fixing in play. But I really don't know that much about it. I'm not speaking that intelligently. Just as an outside observer, it seems really wacky that lumber moves that much because trees grow really slow, so it should be more predictable.
That is fair. Just so that people can see what we're seeing, I want to point out here, December 2021, the component price for linear foot of this whitewood was $265, and the direct component price in January is bumped up to $299. The other one we wanted to look at here was the rafter hanger bracket, which is a big change. So we can see, by the way, that they did some research this month around framing line items, right? Like, why did they make changes to existing framing line items, like these drill bottom plates and the rafters? It's because they're getting feedback from contractors, adjusters, subcontractors, vendors in the field as to like, hey, what's going on? What are the updates? Where's their deficiency? And we can see kind of a change here in the direct yield for this line item. The direct yield was 275. So that was 275 square feet as a unit of the rafter hanger brackets.
But the price really didn't change very much. It's just everything moved a decimal place or an order of magnitude. So you can look at the price per unit, that shift over a decimal point, and so did the direct yield it tracks.
Yep. So big changes there. I just want people to see kind of what we're walking through here so that if they ever dive into a price list update summary video of their own, or they're trying to check their own changes, they can see what we're seeing. That's hopefully a part of aspect of this video series is not just to listen and learn with us, but to also expand your skill set as to how you can interpret these line items. Whatley, have you ever told anyone or been told that cleaning's included in the line item? Is it something that we hear regularly when we travel and we train, and contractors and adjusters have different opinions as to what is included in the line item? Right?
One of the most common complaints that we hear as trainers.
So the big change this month is around final cleaning. And if you do any kind of final cleaning in residential or commercial, which is pretty much almost everybody when it's warranted, which we'll talk about, there was a giant change this month that we need to talk about right now. So let's jump into it. We have here final cleaning construction commercial and final cleaning construction residential. What I am specifically going to open up here, I'm going to open up the labor. I got to go to my actual final cleaning line item here. Start with the commercial. They're both the same change here. We'll take a look. Let's start with the additional item information. I think this is the important part to start here. First of all, December on the left, January on the right. You can already see January's longer, more text, meaning they've added to the additional item information around the final cleaning line item. Specifically, what is brand new here? This sentence right here. The labor supporting events within each line item are intended to be inclusive of the general cleanup performed by each trade for that particular activity, and are not representative of any final cleaning at the end of the job that typically include things like dusting, vacuuming, sweeping, mopping, general wiping down of surfaces impacted by various construction activities. Stop. That's a big statement. Like that's as clear as you can get when it comes to what kind of cleaning is included in the line item. And I think people have been asking these questions for years. There have been endless arguments back and forth about what is final cleaning. And when you talk about supporting events, what cleaning is in the line item. So,
all right. So how did this fairy tale start? Can we track it back?
Sure, go for it.
Supporting events and the relative line items, drywall, painting.
So this is where I want to go next. First, I wanted to look at the sentence that was added to the final cleaning line item. I'm going to read it again, not the full thing, but I just want to explain this. This item for final cleaning is intended to be used for final cleaning of complete facility. The labor supporting events within each individual line item, like your drywall line items and your painting line items, are intended to be inclusive of the general cleanup performed by each trade for that particular activity, which talks about in your immediate vicinity.
Yeah, it's like clean up your tools. Like it's like OSHA compliant levels of clean. Like let's trip and fall hazards. We're constraining that.
But are not representative of any final cleaning at the end of the job that typically include things like dusting, vacuuming, etc. So there is some cleaning in the line item for the tradesmen to clean up their tools, but it is not intended to be inclusive of the final cleaning of a line item or final cleaning of a property when you complete.
Yep.
So this was a big change. Just adding that sentence in the final cleaning line item helps both sides of the industry understand what is intended to be in the line item or not. But the change was actually implemented much further. One of the exercises you asked me to add before we started recording this video was the paint line item, seal prime paint walls, PNT SP. It's a classic, right? Used every day around the country. We're going to seal some walls, we're going to paint some walls. I want to take a look at the component buildup here specifically, and I want to go to the labor component, and I'm going to hit edit, labor component, edit. And I'm looking for supporting events. Let's take a look at December supporting events. Why was there confusion about what cleaning was in the line item? Because the supporting event said this sentence right here: 30 minutes of setup and cleanup of tools and equipment, debris removal, and floor sweeping or vacuuming in immediate workspace. That is what people have been inferring for years as either that includes the cleaning, the final cleaning, or that does not include the final cleaning. Whatever your interpretation of that sentence was. And this is Whatley was where often in training I would get physical. If you remember, I would stand up with.
Oh, that's true. Audience, you did, which is a weird thing to say without context, but yeah.
True. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't get physical.
Give us context or don't actually.
I was using it as a visual physical aid to be able to say, this is my immediate vicinity. Like this is it. This is when I'm cleaning and what's in the line item. It's this area right here is my immediate vicinity. But everything beyond that is not the immediate vicinity. Right? Like that's the construction traffic zone. That's walking in and out of the house. That's the driveway, right? Those are the areas that we typically think of need to be cleaned that are outside of the immediate vicinity of a work environment. So let's jump into the supporting events for painting line item, this painting line item in January 2022. It now says 30 minutes to set up cleanup of tools and equipment, debris removal and floor sweeping or vacuuming in an immediate workspace, independent of any final cleaning at the end of the job if warranted. This is the updated supporting events, as you can see, for every trade in Xactimate. DMO, ACT, CAB, right? What do they all say now if they included some kind of space for
cleaning up the tools,
clean up tools? Yeah. Each line item supporting event now says
independent.
Whatever this cleaning is that's for this specific trade, it's independent of any final cleaning if warranted. So now what do we have? We have clarity. We have transparency. Here's what's included. Here's what's not. Now the conversation is not about whether or not cleaning is included in the line item, which can be an endless conversation about two people reading different things out of the same sentence.
Right.
But now it's just saying, is final cleaning warranted or not? That's now the determination in the conversation. Does this job require fire clean? Yes or no. Final cleaning? Yes or no. Okay. If yes, use the final cleaning line item. If no, don't use the final cleaning line item. That's it. There you go. I mean, I can't think of a more enlightened change in general for swift claim settlement.
More explicit. I mean, rarely is the pricing department choose to be that explicit about their intention, because to the extent that they're explicit, it can actually create friction in unique and different ways. But in this particular case, they made the executive decision to say, let's be really clear about what our intention is with these supporting events and the limits associated with it, and smooth the way for final cleaning for residential and commercial to be a separate and distinct function.
All right. Well said. I think that's one of the biggest changes we've seen. March 2021, we saw big changes to 30 minutes to 60 minutes of drive time. Right, that was a big one, and the supporting events change. This is the next, I guess, iteration of big changes to supporting events that kind of affect every line item. All right, let's talk about miscellaneous changes. These are not yield changes. These are not additional item information changes. Really, it's just like, hey, there's a weird change here. For these joist floor ceilings, guess what? They've added a simple 2 words that says solid blocking. Apparently, the old line item did not reference solid blocking. There was confusion. It includes solid blocking. All right. What did you say earlier? As opposed to what? Liquid blocking?
Mm-hmm. And now I don't know if it was a winner or not.
I thought so. That was Whatley's joke, by the way, for anybody counting credits over
Really?
there.
I mean, you're going to give me credit for that
of
thing?
Course.
I don't know if I want it.
A liquid blocking. I like it.
It is like a dad joke.
Flex seal.
That'll be my role here.
All right.
Dad jokes, come to me.
Yeah. No dad jokes yet for me. I still got a few more years. Don't put that pressure on me. All right.
I'm not.
I know.
I assure you.
My parents.
It's hard.
All right. Roofing felt, double coverage, low slope. We have a simple update here that just explains low slope typically refers to roofs with a slope of 4/12 or less.
4/12.
4/12 or less.
Or less.
That is what would be considered a roofing.
I think probably the friction was like whether 4/12 was included or not in low slope. I wouldn't know the answer to that without clarifying. So 4/12 is low slope or less. Yeah, something like that. So 4/12.
I'll bring this up quickly, just as a reminder. We don't pull all this information from scratch. Like this isn't just coming up off the top of our heads. Xactimate in the e-service center puts out an example or list of all the changes that were made. And one of the things we like to do at the end of this video is kind of see what's coming, what's happened, what's coming. By the way, some of the personal property items removed. This is where we need to say our farewells. Let's say our farewells to the DVD recorder. Single disc, goodbye. Yep. It was nice. Firewire cable. Wow.
I hadn't thought about Firewire in a while.
3 foot, 6 foot, 12 foot, 25. Yeah. Firewire gone. Out of here. Yeah. See you later. LCD, LED, LCD standard grade TVs from 35 to 54 inches. They're out of here. No longer in personal property. By the way, it does say it looks like there were some changes. Like they changed the description of these, and then some of the old line items and components are now gone. So always nice to say our farewells. Here is kind of that explanation of what changed in the price list overall. We updated supporting events to clarify final cleaning. And then what do we have to look forward to? Whatley, it looks like future changes listed here are items for a full louvered double door.
All right.
Who knows what else is up their sleeve in the coming months of 2022.
They've been busy, man. December was like the biggest drop of the year, in my opinion, in terms of changes to the price list. And then boom, here we are, 2022. Also, the biggest price list update summary of 2022. We'll see how long it holds up, but is in fact the case. But this was a pretty big month, especially as it relates to final cleaning. I think that really helped smooth out and reduce friction in claim settlement.
All right, viewer, insider, you now have the information. You have the power. It is your responsibility to wield this power with incredible caution. And no, just go out there and settle claims fairly accurately. These were great changes this month. Again, a reminder about the Verisk Elevate conference coming up in Salt Lake City. I believe it's like February 15th and 16th. Sorry, wife, I won't be home for Valentine's Day. Oops. Hey, I'm excited about this year, Whatley. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Anybody watching this video will see lots of updates from us on the new Actionable Insights Matterport certification course for 2022. If you've taken the Matterport course with us before, guess what? There's going to be a new continuing education course for 2022. And Matterport's also been up to a lot of changes that I'm excited about. So the things that we are passionate about, Whatley, are coming together nicely. And I'm excited for what 2022
You are excited, but you are excitable. But in reality, I think this will be a big year for Actionable Insights. You've got a lot of things that your team has been quietly building, and it will make a splash when it hits. Valentine's Day. I don't know how the Lovelands ever decided to steal Valentine's Day away from us, but in my particular case, it works out okay because Maria and I, she's Brazilian, we just celebrate Valentine's Day on the Brazilian schedule, which is a different time of year. So at any rate, that's how we've made up for it. But I have not been home for Valentine's Day in over a decade.
Oops. That's what happens when you go to the Varus conference 10 years in a row.
Yeah. Celebrate Brazilian Valentine's Day. I'll see you at the conference.
All right. Sounds good. Everybody celebrate Brazilian Valentine's Day out there. And good luck settling those claims. Thank you for watching.
Keep building.